Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Howdy folks, and welcome to this video where I'm going to showcase my newly completed Fantasy Dwarf project. I have been working on this since last year December. This was a Black Friday purchase, and I've been working on it pretty steadily ever since then and just finished it this week. So I don't know, that's what, 5-6 months? Haven't been able to work on it the same amount of hours every single week, but whenever I got finished with a commission, whenever I had some spare time, I would start chipping away. So I would say to those of you who have a pile of shame, paint a model a day, paint 5 models a week. Just start working on something, and eventually you can chip through it all. So I wanted to show it off, partly to show off, it was a lot of work, so I would like to show it off. Second, I wanted to show off some of the models. I think everything in here is 3D printed. Some of it by me, most of it by a couple different folks on Etsy. Most of the miniatures come from Highlands Miniatures, but there's also some from Kyushinoko in there. And let's take a look at what we've got. So starting off, taking a look at the characters. I bought a whole bunch of them just because you never know what you're going to need. But if we want to start here over on the right, there's Heidi. Or Helga, I can't recall. I did get another one simply because one of the bundles I bought had 2 of the engineers in there, but she is one of my go-to engineer dwarf models. Next to her, I got another male engineer. Then we have a champion, a hero, a king, some kind of, a major character there. Next to that, the guy who's going to work for my rune priest. And then over here, this is a Kyushinoko miniature. I needed an army standard bearer, so I decided to paint this guy up. He could also, in a pinch, fit in with any of the other units I have here, but his primary purpose was to be the battle standard bearer. Over here, the mainstay of the army, we have our basic core troops. So here we've got a unit of gentlemen with blunderbusses, blunderbussi. I don't know. Someone tell me which one of those is correct. But here are the marksmen. For most of the units, I got an entire full 20 models with a full command. So I don't necessarily think I'll ever run a squad of 20 marksmen, but 2 squads of 10, possibly. Next to them, here's the backbone of the army, a squad of 20 warriors armed with the axes and the shields, and I made sure I gave them a full command as well. Here we have the miners, and I thought these guys were actually a lot of fun to paint. It was just something about the variations in the models. You got some of those guys there, like this one here, who's holding up the lantern. I thought was pretty cool, and it was nice to paint something that wasn't just solid blue and solid silver, because as you'll see, there was a lot of that. So maybe these guys were different just because they had a little different. Use your words. Maybe I like these guys because there was just a little bit of different color. I also thought it was really cool the candles that they have on their heads for going down into the mines. I thought that was pretty unique. All right, next over here, I got a squad of rangers. I figured it'd be a nice way to round out the army. I haven't used them very much. They were kind of fun to paint with the green cloaks. Again, a little bit of extra colors. You can see when you paint the same 3 colors on like 200 different models, the chance to paint any kind of different color is really exciting. So here we've got our heavy flamethrower unit. And at first, I wasn't quite sure how well I liked the sculpt. When I was looking at the STL file, debating whether or not to purchase it, I wasn't entirely sure. But now that I got them painted, put on the table, I'm glad I got them. They're really, really cool. And then on the side here, you have the 2-man team, which I thought was pretty snazzy. You got the guy back there who's feeding, as it were, the one in front. Now, these are the ones that took me the longest to finish. These are the 2 that I finished this week that have been holding me up. Part of it is because they were broken in transit. Those tiny ropes that are holding up the balloon and the propellers, those all snapped. And so I had to spend time meticulously gluing stuff back on, and that took a little bit of time. And then the next thing was the painting of them. There's a lot of tiny bits and bobs, and it was just, I put it off to the end because I knew it was going to be difficult. And then the other concern I had was these things are huge in terms of height. And with being as spindly as they were, I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to transport these? How am I going to store these? Am I going to do it in one piece with the base? What am I going to do? And then I realized, let me show you a little something here. They're magnetic. The prints, come on, there we go. The prints included a space for very tiny magnets. And once I got a hold of those, piece of cake. So both of them now, and I can swap however I want. So I decided to get one bomber, one fighter. Let's turn this guy so you can kind of see his profile a little bit. So there you have the dude dropping the bombs out the back. And I wanted one with the propellers, one with the balloon, because I just kind of like the balloon. The idea behind it looks kind of neat. All right, moving over, we have the High King, who, if any of you watch my battle report playing Regiments with Josh and his undead, they didn't do so well. This guy got into combat and immediately was destroyed and ran away. Very disappointing. He was a lot of fun to paint. He has a lot of really great details. And I just need to determine what size base I want to put him on. But for now, I think he's pretty cool. You got the 6 guys carrying him. The fact that he's in a boat, that's kind of interesting. It was new, it was unique, but I'm glad I got him. Now back here, these 3 you've also seen if you've been watching any of my battle reports. These guys are also from Q Shunico Miniatures. I didn't upgrade, I didn't, scale. These are the exact size that the STL files are if you print them as is. So I decided to make these my constructs, living statues, anything like that. Super easy to paint. In fact, I'm hoping to do a tutorial video on how to do this rock scheme because you can plow through a ton of models very quickly, and I think they look good enough. Up here are the cavalry. Bottom because dwarves riding bears is pretty awesome. When I was much younger, I started playing World of Warcraft simply because when I watched the opening cinematic for the very, very first release of the game, one of the characters they showed was a hunter, a dwarf hunter, and his pet bear. And I just love that idea of the dwarf and the bear. So an entire unit of dwarf bear cavalry. I mean, what's not to love about that? Now over here, I've got my heavy infantry, the 2-handed hammer guys, for when it is hammer time. And you're starting to see why I got a little bit tired of painting silver and blue, because that's all it was. Now, the nice thing was when I painted these guys, I primed them in silver, and it made painting go a lot faster. Once I got kind of a little pattern down of the quickest order to paint things, you know, do the weapon last, do the beard last, that kind of stuff, I was able to get through them pretty quickly. I set a goal to do 5 guys every time I sat down. Not necessarily 5 a day, but when I had time to paint my own models, I had to paint 5 before I could do anything else, and it seemed to work pretty well. All right, here we have a High King. Maybe he's not as high as to be on a boat that's being carried, but at least he gets a shield with some shield bearers. So there he is. This is the one that I'm not entirely happy with. Almost everything else in the army, I am completely satisfied with how I painted. This guy, I don't know, maybe I just did too much gold. But, I mean, obviously I'm going to play him, obviously I'm going to use him, but yeah, it's just, when I was done with him, I stared at him and I said, I'm not a huge fan, not enough to repaint it, but yeah, I'm wondering if maybe I should have done something differently. Now back here, I have a king on foot, and I decided to splurge when I ordered this and have them print out the terrain piece there with him. So I don't know if I'll ever see any tabletop time, maybe as an objective or something like that. But the look of it was too awesome not to get a hold of. So there's my High King standing on his dais. Not quite a throne because there's no chair there, but you get the idea. Now over here are all of the artillery. The 3D printer that I ordered these from did a package deal. If you bought all the artillery, you got them at a discount. So I figured, why not? So first up, we've got the Grudge Thrower, the Heavy Stone Thrower. This one came in a couple pieces. It went together fairly well, although you can see I did make one teeny mistake. That rock back there is supposed to be resting on the ground. But unfortunately, when I was putting it together, I glued it all before I realized that. So it still works. I mean, don't tell anybody and they won't notice. Then after that, we've got a flame cannon, organ gun, regular cannon, heavy bolt thrower. And for each one, they sent 2 or 3 different models to use as crew. So I painted one of each. So we've got the guy with the flag pointing out where to shoot. We've got the guy with the wrench. We have the cannonball loader there. You have the guy with the powder keg. And what I think is really cool about him is he's, see if I can zoom in here. He's lighting his cigar with the fuse while he's got a powder keg under his arm. Now that's just hilarious. Then next to him, we got the guy over here who is, covering his head because the boom is about to go off. Last of all, here we got the guy who's running the stone thrower. All right, next unit, we have in 40K, I'm sorry, in Old World, what would be called the Longbeards. In one-page rules, what would be called the Bearded Veterans. But anyway, these are your grizzled veterans here. So I made sure when I painted them, I tried to make most of their beards some variation of gray. So some are a bright gray, some are almost white. I did put in a couple that still have orange or brown, just to give it some variation and variety. But there's my more elite infantry. Next to that here, we have a squad of berserkers or slayers or whatever the heck you want to call them. These ones are actually tricky to paint because all the skin. Now I did a video showing how to paint skin and or how to paint one of these models, and the skin takes a little more time because of the highlighting. Metal's pretty easy, you can dry brush that to highlight. But the skin, you got to take a little bit more time and attention. So we've got ourselves here all kinds of berserkers, and I wanted to go different. I know typically when people think of slayers or berserkers, they always have the fiery haircut, the mohawk. I already have an army of fire slayers from Age of Sigmar, so I didn't want to just paint more that looked the same. So I instead decided to paint these guys with just their natural hair color, and see how that would work. And I think it worked pretty well. It's different. It's a unit of slayers, but they're not all walking around with these bright orange haircuts. I got my other unit of ranged attackers here using crossbows instead of marksmen. And again, I went with an order of 20 just because, who knows, maybe I want to have 2 squads of 10. These were a little bit trickier to paint because those crossbows have a lot of details with the fletching and the arrow and the bowstring and all that stuff. And but I wanted the full range of the dwarves here. And then last of all, the super heavy infantry. Whether you want to call these the Iron Warriors or Iron Breakers, I think that's what they were. But the point is, these are my super heavy infantry, heavy plate armor, massive shields, and these guys were also fairly easy to paint because they're mostly just silver. The shields were a little tricky because you had to paint the base color on it and then go back and detail the gold over top. So I have no idea how many points that is. I imagine it's a lot. So far in the 2 games I played, we only did 2,000 points, and I was able to bring not even half of what I have here. But this is the first project that I've ever bought an entire army all at once and then managed to paint the whole thing. Other armies I've piecemealed, added to, bought a box set and slowly added to it, but this was the first time that I bought everything I wanted to get in a single go. And I think this shows that 3D printing is very soon going to take over from other ways of buying models. I mean, plastic, pewter, resin, the other kind of resin, that stuff's going to stick around, but how can you compete when you can get fantastic looking models like this that paint up just as well at a fraction of the cost? I think everything I have here, all of these models, with maybe the exception of the few from Kyushinoko, so the big statues at the back and then one of the heroes up front. Everything else you see on the table here cost me $400. That's it. Someone in the comments tell me how much this would cost if I bought the GW equivalents. So a huge thank you to Highlands Miniatures for designing these, and then a huge thank you to the 2 stores that I bought these from. I think one was called McGavin Miniatures, and the other one was Big Wars Resin Hearts. They were the ones that had a great Black Friday deal going. That's part of the reason I was able to get them so cheap, but even still, $400 for all of this? So I look forward to putting these on the table, and who knows, maybe I'll have another showcase in another 6 months or so. But I'm proud of them. I wanted to show them off. Hopefully you guys are working on something that you're as excited about as I am about my dwarves here. So thanks for watching. Keep your dice on the table. And none of these are going to win me a golden demon, but I most definitely think that they are good enough.